There's a lot of sloppiness in the use of the word theme, and what I do is I divide into themes and atmospheres, which I've also heard called canvases. Here's the difference. A theme makes a significant difference in how a game is designed and how it's played. It could be an historical theme, it can be a story, it can be a common setting like epic fantasy, but whatever it is, the designer takes it into account when they're designing the game. They model the situation when they make the game. Now, the theme also helps in marketing the game because stories are used to market games. The theme also provides constraints, and I am convinced that constraints help anyone in a creative situation come up with a better product. Not always, but it tends to be that way. Now, in contrast, an atmosphere is the trappings of a story or theme, but it makes no significant difference in how the game is designed or how it's played. So an atmosphere or canvas can be tacked onto an abstract game after the game is finished. The atmosphere provides no constraints on the design, but it still helps in marketing the game. You can turn over a box of a tabletop game, especially Euro-style games, and it will tell you the story of the atmosphere, even though, in many cases, that atmosphere has nothing to do with how the game is designed. Now, there are some Euro-style games where the theme is a theme. It makes a difference in how the game is designed. Power Grid might be one, for example. So the atmosphere is tacked on to help marketing because it's hard to market abstract games, and yet what you essentially have is an abstract game with a story tacked on. Now, if it were me, I'd leave it as an abstract game, but abstract games are hard to market. It doesn't mean people don't want to play them, but it's hard to persuade people to buy them. And of course, if people don't buy the game, they're not going to be able to play it. Now, how does theme affect the game? I use the term analogousness, or something that's a lot easier to say, correspondence. There's an analogy between what happens in a game and what happens in reality, between what the player does in the game and what happens in reality. War games, especially the ones that are called simulations, often have a strong correspondence like this. Now, diplomacy isn't a simulation. It's not a very good model, but it does have a strong theme of national military and diplomatic competition around 1900. You can take the mechanics of diplomacy and change the theme, and this is often done in what are called diplomacy variants, and there are hundreds of them. So one might be about warfare in South America. That doesn't mean that the diplomacy mechanics are going to fit quite as well to South America as they do to Europe around 1900, but it can be done. The only way you get this correspondence is by deliberately modeling some reality. It doesn't have to be a real thing. It can be a fictional reality like Middle-earth, Tolkien's Middle-earth. Adding an atmosphere later on just doesn't cut it, because there's a clear disjunction between what happens in the game and what the game is supposedly about. So you might not be surprised to hear that games I design are either abstract or they're models of some reality and they have a theme, not an atmosphere. But there are many people who like to design abstract games that are somewhat more complex than the abstract games I would design, because I stick with simple And some people do not. They like sort of what I call mental gymnastics with more complex abstract games, and they're happy to attach an atmosphere to it to help sell that game.